The Kershaw Blur is an epic blade and should be a part of everybody's EDC system, in my opinion. It's got so many great aspects to it. USA made, comes in at about $50 with Sandvik steel for the original. They have S30V versions, just so much capability and a great super functional design. So we gotta ask ourselves, is the Bare Ops Swipe better than the Kershaw Blur? USA made as well, about a $50 price point, the exact same Sandvik steel that's on the original Blur, but it's righty-lefty compatible, loop over design, G10 handle scales, and very similar in layout and performance. So we're gonna run these head-to-head today, see which one is better, if one definitely stands out, if there are some major drawbacks to one design, and hopefully answer that question, is the Bare Ops Swipe better than the Kershaw Blur, or does the Kershaw Blur still hold its own and will stand up to anything that the Swipe can throw at it? So let's go ahead and jump to it and see what these blades can do. All right, let's go ahead and hit the blade here. Really like the design. Again, we'll be discussing it a lot against the Kershaw Blur just because of so many similarities. So just like the Blur, you're gonna get a slight recurve. Some of you will like it, some of you will hate it. If you're not into recurves, you know, this isn't the knife for you right out of the gate, and the Blur is not either. So you're getting a hollow grind. Really nice there. So ceramic rods are going to be the best to tune these things up with and resharpen. You're getting a mild swedge, good precise tip. A little bit on the thin side for precision, so not as strong as some other knives out there. When we, it's about the S30V version of the Blur has a stronger tip. It's about the same thickness as the Sandvik version of the Blur, so that's good. 0.13, so just a hair thicker than what you would normally get on a lot of knives back here, but the transition with the hollow grind kind of makes up for that. It is definitely narrower than the Blur. It's definitely more of a dagger-esque style blade, 3 1/4 inches overall from handle scale to tip. And it's going to be made with Sandvik 14C 28N steel, USA made knife. Again, that's why I ran it up against the Blur, because the original, the standard Blur and this knife share the same steel. You're going to see very similar edge retention. It's definitely a step up over like 420 high carbon, HCR, AUS 8. It's a really good steel. Similar performance to what you'll see with a lot of VG10 out there on the market. Very rust resistant. They do have a satin version as well as this blacked out version. The satin version will be a little bit cheaper by about $5. So when it comes to the actual blade performance, I would say compared to the Blur, because the Blur has a higher grind overall and not quite as dagger-esque. When it comes to slicing tasks, the Blur will be a little bit better. When it comes to penetration, the Bare Ops, the Swipe will be a little bit better. So very similar performance. The slicing will be just a little bit better with the Blur, and because of the traction and different things that we're going to discuss today, this would definitely fall into more of kind of like that tactical line in the sense of how the blade is designed and how the layout of the handle is designed. So when we look at pocket clips, I think the Swipe definitely has a leg up over the Blur. The Blur has a large pocket clip that has a pretty high ride and is not loop over. So I can tend to have some binding up with the knife on my pockets and when I'm carrying it, and it's only right-handed. It's only laid out for righties, tip up, tip down. On the Swipe, you have a loop over design, really nice. Still gives you a little bit to grab, for more, again, range time. You got gloves on, easy to grab, that type of thing. Blacked out though, which is great. Loop over, ambidextrous, tip up, right or left. So I really like that aspect a lot. Lefties, righties, with the way that they've designed the thumb studs. I mean, you're going to really dig the layout of the pocket clip. That you do have a very mild lanyard hole. You could definitely get your 550 paracord through there though if you did want to use that backer. I believe that's a G10 being the form that causes that lanyard hole right there. But the pocket clip is a big selling point because it's ambidextrous, loop over, and just a little bit better in my opinion than what's on the Blur. Then as we move along here to the handle, very cool. I like the dueling G10 there. Very nice to see. I would say light texturing on the G10. It's not super heavy duty like you would expect maybe from a cold steel or something like that. It gives you a little bit of traction, nothing insane. And you're going to get an overall length of 4.5 inches. You're looking at 0.53 inches thick. Steel liners in there that have not been milled out, so this comes in at 4.1 ounces. For the size, I think is very doable for the price, all the things that we've been looking at today. You don't have full flow through. There's a G10 spacer back here as well. Good transitions though, doesn't feel sharp or abrupt in the hand. They did a good job with that. Really good cut in right here, and then some good jimping blocky right there as well as right here. So it's not super sharp and gives me just enough. So if I'm kind of up close and doing more precision cutting, I still have a little bit of jimping to grab onto. If I'm back here, I still have jimping on the handle as well with that very mild thumb ramp. And with the G10, it just gives me a really good solid lockup in any way that I hold it. And I have large size hands, wear large size gloves, as you guys know. So zero really complaints with that. Compared to the Blur, I like the Blur in that the edges have been more radiused and they're even more comfortable. Flow through construction completely. And then it's got some really cool kind of texturing. I can't remember what they call it, like Altac, you know, like rubber, basically. Very similar. It's going to be a little bit thinner at about 1/2 inch versus the 0.5 on the Bear Ops. Right around the same weight class as well. So very similar, but it doesn't have quite the transitions in the handle that, even though this is kind of pitched as an EDC tactical knife, the Blur, it doesn't quite give me the jimping and traction that I would prefer. It would be easier for me to slide up on the handle or from the handle to the edge with hard use on the Blur than on the Swipe. The Swipe is just more locked in. So depending on how you deploy the knife or planning on using the knife, that may be a selling point, may not be. I think for EDC tasks, I would argue that the Blur would probably be just a little more comfortable in the hand. For harder use tasks, then the Bear Ops would be, the Swipe would be a little bit better. So another aspect that I wanted to hit is price point. Now, the standard versions, the Sandvik version of the Blur and then this Swipe from Bear Ops are both going to run you about $50 to $55, just depending on color combinations, options. The S30V version is going to be about $70. I think it is definitely worth the upgrade because you get a much better steel and the tip is tougher, so there's less likelihood with harder use of, you know, snapping, breaking compared to these other guys. Not that I would really worry about it, but it was a selling point to me. And sometimes you can find them for a little less, maybe $68, you know, $65 for the S30V version of the Blur. But for that price point, $50, $55, depending on color combinations, you know, it's a great selling point. Now we're going to have links in the description below to Blade HQ for the Bear Ops, because to my knowledge right now, I've looked on Amazon. I don't see these being sold there. If in the future they are, I'll have a link over to Amazon. So if you want the Bear Ops, that's going to be on Blade HQ exclusively. The Kershaw will be on Amazon and Blade HQ. So we'll have links in the description below for both websites. When you guys use those hyperlinks, really helps me out. Purchase knives like the Blur, purchase knives like the Bear Ops. I've purchased both of these. It helps me continue to do what we do here when you guys use those hyperlinks and help fund the channel. In that way, we get a small kickback. Helps me to continue making the videos that you see here. So thank you guys for your continued support. But for that $50, $55, I think you're getting, in the sense of their materials, layout, you're getting your foot in the door in a US blade that's, you know, an upgrade over like budget-friendly Bucks and some of the budget-friendly Kershaws that are out there. Okay, so these are both open-assisted knives. Now, the Blur has some super cool thumb studs that are transitioned perfectly for your thumb. You hit that thing, the Speed Safe whips it right open. A liner lock that's a little bit on the thin side. You know, would have liked it maybe a little bit thicker. I've never had a failure or any sort of issues with the Blur knives. Hits right there. Good, solid, zero play, left, right, up, down. I mean, this thing is a tight liner lock and never loosens up on me. No issues whatsoever. And that Speed Safe spring whips that thing nice and quick. Now, on the Bear Ops, you have really good pronounced thumb studs on either side. They give you plenty of reach. Even lefties easily can hit that thing and open the blade. I would say about the same strength on the spring as on the Kershaw. No real complaints there. It's going to whip it right open. Flick that guy. Good stop bar back there, just like on the Blur. So very similar. Again, that's why I wanted to purchase this Bear Ops. I thought it would be a very good head-to-head with the Blur for a lot of reasons. So that's no issue. Pretty good centering, maybe just a hair less than a millimeter off to one side on the Bear Ops. Dead center from what it looks like on the Blur. So decent, no problems. I do believe I see bronze phosphorus bushings in there. You do have, if I remember correctly, yeah, I see bronze down in there. Bronze phosphorus on the Blur. So everything up until this point is fine. Here is the issue. The first one, this is my second one. The first one, after about 20 minutes, was overextending the liner lock. It was going all the way over to the right, overextending itself, and was, you know, like less than a millimeter, a micron away from slipping and jamming up the blade completely. So I sent that back to Blade HQ. Blade HQ has an awesome return policy. They sent me out another one. And I am not having the overextension anymore, which is a big plus, and it has about the same thickness of liner lock that we saw on the original Blur. You know, a one-time thing like that wouldn't be that big a deal to me. It works and functions properly. The issue is that the pivot is loosening up on me. I got some massive wobble right and left, and I have clicking up and down. And when it came to me, it did not have either. But after about 100 to 200 fires of opening and closing the blade, it is producing this. And I've had to tighten it down, and now I've got it, you know, tight, and now it's doing it again. So we're gonna cut, and I'm gonna put some Loctite. I'm gonna mess around with the pivot a little. We're gonna see if I can fix this and come back to you in probably another day or two and see if this really is cleaned up or if I'm continuing to have pivot problems. But I should not be having this many issues and pivot problems and locking problems with two different knives. We shouldn't be having that problem. I've owned not only this S30V version of the Blur, but I've had about 2 Sandvik ones over the years and never had an issue. My buddy has an LMAX limited edition one, never had any pivot or locking issues. And so we're going to find out if we're having some major locking problems and pivot problems with the Bear Ops knife. Okay, so it's been about a week since I Loctited this guy, and thankfully it's not loosening anymore, but where I had to get it to work and function properly, we're having pretty good lockup side to side, pretty expected, but I hope you can hear that. There's clicking and there's definitely wobble up and down. And I don't have any of that on my Kershaw. So just not super stoked about that, and the fact that I have to put in Loctite because it was backing itself out. The first one, the liner lock, just the tolerances weren't there, and it was, you know, jamming over the side. So this happened to be my second one, and now I'm having this rattle and this play, and it's what I have to live with it with the knife. I'm just not super stoked about, and for what else is on the market, and particularly again against that Blur, it's subpar compared to what the Blur is offering in its lockup and just solid feel in the pivot area. Well, to answer our original question, no, the swipe is not better than the Kershaw Blur. In fact, I would say it's subpar to the Kershaw Blur, mostly with fit and finish and functionality of the pivot and lockup, which is super sad because I feel like this could be a great secondary option to the Kershaw Blur. The Kershaw Blur, again, super amazing, great fit and finish, super high quality, never had an issue with several of the designs that I've had over the years, but now owning 2 of these Blair Ops, still having problems, not giving me the tight lockup and performance that I would want out of a design like this, just makes me have to go, no, it's subpar, but it could have been a great secondary option, either if you already own a Blur and you were looking just for another knife that's similar, or maybe there are some aspects to the Blur. Maybe you're a lefty and you're just like, yeah, I need something similar. I love the design, but I need a left-handed carry. This would have been it. But sadly, this is now the second Bear Ops blade that had great potential, but because of fit and finish issues and quality control issues, I'm having trouble with. So I would love to see Bear Ops just step up their game with their quality control and fit and finish, and I think a lot of their designs could really be nailing it and knocking it out of the park. But as for me guys right now, man, Kershaw Blur, particularly this S30V version, is epic and still king. Thank you guys so much for coming over here today, checking out the channel. Please subscribe, comment, like, share this video. Love to hear you guys' thoughts, any questions that you have about the swipe or the Blur. I'd love to answer them for you guys in the comments below. If you're not a current subscriber to Gideon's Tactical, I'd invite you to become part of the GT family. We're throwing up videos like this every single week. You current subscribers are awesome. Make sure to hit that bell icon so it's in your news feed so you guys don't miss out on any of the videos that we throw up week after week. And finally, guys, always remember, stay equipped, stay prepared, and we'll see you out there.
Okay.